folks, with us live is Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul Bakerland, how you doing this evening?
Oh, I'll tell you what, Mike, I'm doing wonderful. How are you tonight?
We're back.
We're back. Okay. Yeah, you know, Mike, you and I just had an intense 1 hour about a little bit over an hour ago. Whew.
Was that an hour? Was that?
It was you.
Just,
you were on
enough time.
You were on for an hour and 4 minutes, and you were talking as fast as you could. And you were, I know, it wasn't near enough time. You needed like 4 hours yourself.
Yeah, you know what? We're quickly approaching a time where, you know, people are going to see what they're going to see. And it's good for them to know what's happening, all the things that could potentially happen. Because I'll tell you something, it's for real.
It really is, Mike. And
one time, Pascal, in combat, a child looked at me. And that child said, are we going to be okay? Right? I couldn't answer that kid. I don't want to do that again. Right?
No.
I don't want to do that again.
Hang on, Mike. They want me to turn your volume up, so give me 1 second, and I'll do that. That's channel.
Okay, let me make sure I can yank it up all the way over here. Is that a little better?
Well, it's good. Yeah, that is. You're a little bit louder right there. And so now I'm going to give you a little more, and let's see how that is for everybody out there. Try that, Mike.
All right. How's it sound? Pretty good?
Sounds loud and clear for me. Let's see what they say here.
Hopefully they can hear it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Now I can talk louder.
Well,
I don't want to blow my microphone up.
Yeah, don't believe you're talking as loud as you need to. Now let's see. Mike is okay. Yes, that's better. They're saying yes.
Okay, good.
I'll turn you up just a little more, just to be sure. Okay. All right, that's better. They're saying good. All right, Mike. Let's get right into this tonight. First of all, you want to talk a little bit about this winter bomb cyclone?
Yeah, another one, right? Another. They were watching a low pressure system form for the last 4 days or so, and this thing just took off. It has the potential to really take up a lot more moisture. You know, the clouds have an ability to hold more moisture. And with that offset, you know, you have winds and the colder temperatures that are starting to form from, it's amazing because since we talked last time, the temperatures have dropped about 10 degrees just about everywhere. And it's a notable change in temperature and intensity of storms. But this is a giant low pressure system. One overseas, one over here. It's just huge. This is huge.
So did the volcano Tonga, did it have anything to do with creating this this extreme weather that they're having in the Northeast?
Well, I'm sure that some of the particles that go up into the atmosphere is going to contribute to a reflection of heat. You know, it's going to throw weather patterns off, absolutely. To what degree is probably right now minimal. But as we continue to go and this thing continues to, other things continue to erupt, we're going to face an interruption in what's called normal. We're going to have to get used to some very extreme and harsh conditions, basically. And you know what's so ironic, Pascal? It's not going away. All these volcanoes going up, they're just dumping carbon into the atmosphere. They're dumping, you know, all these gases, exotic gases and everything else in the atmosphere. And they haven't stopped. They're still going.
And, you know, like you said, I was looking at the over at spaceweather.com. They were showing inoculant outburst. It said, did the Tonga volcano cause this outburst of inoculant clouds? However, it said the jury's still not out yet. However, the 8-day movie they just show you there around the South Pole happened after the volcanic eruption. So what they're saying is, you know, so is that possible that it can make that much of an atmospheric change?
I'd say it's a contributor, but we also had a problem with the tilt, and so right after that, I would say that this is a combination of a few things, but we also went through a tilt, and that is the tilt is actually taken from a laser measurement, and it is quite precise, and we had a notable tilt, so that can most definitely, you know, change things. If a 1% change in our tilt can make a difference in extreme to normal, then of course a tinier tilt could really cause changes in atmospheric phenomena.
So, do you think that could affect? Could that affect hurricanes season next
Yes.
summer or next
Oh
fall?
yeah. Yeah.
In
If,
what
if
way?
you see if you see low pressure systems of magnitude forming in the wintertime, they're going to be twice as big in the summertime. In the wintertime, believe it or not, weather patterns are more subdued, right? But as things warm up, they really become quite enormous. So twice the potential is going to be had in the summertime as wintertime.
Mike, also Tonga exploded again. I mean, excuse me. Tonga just had an earthquake this afternoon, 6.2. Right, that volcano apparently is alive and well. Is there any information you have for us about not only Tonga's volcano underwater, but others along that ridge? I think 2 days ago another one erupted, not real big, but it gave way. It erupted just along that ridge, not far from it. So what does this all mean?
Well, lava tubes, there are lava chambers and flows underneath the surface of the Earth, of which they can see this by radio waves. They can see it by vibrations, or they can induce a small vibration to get feedback, kind of like echolocation, but a different type. That volcano where it sits in the proximity of Indonesia and all those places is connected to Alaska. So I would expect any rumblings that we have in that area is going to start rumblings in Alaska. I know on a map, nothing is round on a map per se, but there are a few, let's call them big lakes of high pressure that travel to and fro from those two places. And if it continues rumbling like that, it's going to cause a problem in Alaska.
It just sounds amazing to me. Some of the things that's happening, folks. If some of you are still saying that the volume is perfect, it's great. Others saying I can't hardly hear. Here's what you can do: go to my website and try this. If you just go to paulbegleyprophecy.com, this broadcast is live over at paulbegleyprophecy.com also, and the volume there's it runs through a different system, so that may actually sound a lot better there tonight for some reason. Don't ask me why these things happen. I don't know. We've got it cranked up as loud as you can crank it. So check it out over there and let me know if that's any better. Some people are saying now it's better. Others are saying, yeah, it's perfect. And then others can't hear. And I don't know what's up with that, if that's on your folks' end or what. But if you're having trouble, go to my website and see what it sounds like there. All right. Mike, can we talk about Russia and Ukraine? It's been a volatile
Yeah.
2 weeks. Where are we
Yeah.
now?
No solution. No solution whatsoever. In fact, I know that the news was hinting towards some type of solution being found. There is no solution. There's a history with Russia and the Ukraine. Russia cannot afford to have NATO in the Ukraine at their back door, setting up, a base. That's what they don't want. If the Ukraine could give, or NATO could give the assurances to Russia that they will not militarize the Ukraine, Putin would likely, back off just a little, but they won't give those assurances. So because of that, he's going to have no choice but to take it. Plus, Ukraine is a wound. It's a sore, part for Russia. They lost it long time ago, and in order to have the dignity and the pride of Russia back, they need the Ukraine. They lost it, and they're going to take it back. Plus, there's some sensitive spots in the Ukraine. Now, right now, they keep those spots covered because no one lives in those spots because of the Russians. And they've been under fire for a long time. Every single day, they have some sort of exchange of fire. This is every single day. And this one specific part, they keep it cleared out, right? Russia has, they spent extensive funds in that area during the Cold War, near that area, anticipating, certain things, but they have facilities there. They have, it's very strategic as far as their advantage with the rest of the world. And they see and know what China's doing. China is militarizing Argentina, China is threatening Taiwan, but they're also surrounding Taiwan. China has, they're fighting us on shipment issues, right? Shipping is the price is much higher than what it used to be. They've slowed down our market as far as development of technology in the private sector because they cut off chip making and things like that. We have certain chip makers, yes, but the price is so high that people won't use that in their R&D. So we're kind of, falling behind in R&D as well. They have an advantage right now. So they're doing all this, and Russia knows this. China's talked to the rest of the world outside of the West. These guys are coordinating. They're going to be, they already said it. They said it last week. They said it this week. They'll probably say it again. They are the rising superpower of the world. And believe it or not, countries already recognize China as the superpower. So there's a type of struggle going on here, right? Confrontation is inevitable. One of my greatest concerns, however, is some of the planted individuals in the Middle East, in Russia, utilizing China as sort of a piggyback proxy to position themselves inside of Russia, inside of the Argentine army, because China is giving Argentina weaponry. Do you know that? They're arming them with some up-to-date weapons.
Really?
Yeah. So what China's been doing is, while everybody is focused in certain areas, China has been enhancing armies all around the world with Chinese equipment. And of course, they have remote, China keeps remote access to all of their high-level, military platforms. So you have that. You have missile launchers from Russia being set up all over the place. Russia just moved more troops in this morning, and a few more missile launchers. So they're certainly ready for a ground war. And this could drag. This Ukraine issue could drag, several nations into it inadvertently. It really could do that. If Russia loses stability in Moscow due to the Ukrainian crisis, because it's not going to bolster the country's confidence in the country, that's not what it's going to do. It's going to start fracturing what people thought their international position was. And if this begins, confusion is going to follow, and you're going to have people inside of Russia, compromised as far as the rest of the world goes. So NATO is up in its alert status. All of the NATO alliances are up in its alert status. Some of the rapid response forces have been, they've been issued the green light that they may have to get up and go. And all this happened in the last 72 hours. So they haven't reached any type of agreement that would actually, eliminate this thing. This thing is going from green to red pretty quick. It's full of uncertainty too.
Yeah, so the reports we're getting from the media that it's cooling down and everything's okay, you're not buying it. I got a map. No. I got a map up there right now, Mike. If you were able to see the screen, that is Ukraine in the white, and you can see all the countries. You can see all the different cities. Kiev is over there near Chernobyl. But if you look over to the right, that's the eastern side next to Russia. That's where Donetsk and that area there. I'm looking at Odessa. I'm looking at these different cities. Where is Russian troops right now sitting?
Well, they're back in the back. But as of this morning, they have positioned themselves right there near the where they took that territory last time in Crimea. Right? They have heavy forces up in there. Okay. They have more forces going around near some of that disputed zone. That will be in the west, the western half of the Ukraine. And they have naval ships that are coming up because they're going to support. They're set up for logistics through the sea, and by land at the same time, but through the sea and by land. They just moved in medical platforms. That was in the last 2 days. So they're getting a support operation ready for wounded soldiers. The missile platforms, of course, and those go all over the place. And the radar extension has shot all the way out past Odessa. So that's way past Odessa.
Wow.
So they're covering, their air coverage is already, it's interfering with U.S. air coverage. I don't know I know that the president has ground forces on alert and some response forces ready, but there's going to be it's not going to be very effective based on how Russia is positioned. And not to mention these guys are dug in like ticks, so they're not easily going to be pushed aside. They have that whole area is covered by offensive, defensive missile platforms. They have the air coverage, they have the radar systems to go with it, and by sea they have a logistical operation in undertow that would just if anything ever happened, they would get their troops replenished quite quickly. So it looks like they're getting ready to really do something they didn't do. They didn't have this much last time. They did not have full medical support set up last time, right? They didn't. They took Crimea and that was it. They did not have full medical support. This time, they have the full medical chain deployed. So that within itself makes you see this situation in a very different light. I don't think it's cooling down at all.
See, that shows you the difference between what the media wants to tell the public and what's really going on. Do you think it's because of the Olympics that's coming up here in Beijing that the media over here in the United States now wanting to cool this thing down a little bit because NBC's got to make a lot of money off the Olympics and they want to make sure everybody's watching? Is there some coordination going on between the media, the Russians, and the Chinese?
Well, the media they want their jobs, right? They need the money.
Yeah.
The media is greedy, but they're not going to give the coverage that the White House or anybody else has told them not to really go into that area. And if you haven't noticed, the White House is not exactly coming forward with all the info either, because if you start reading what the Russians are doing, they're not reporting that in the U.S. They're just simply reporting the same politics as usual. And they're pushing everything else, saying next week we'll have this discussion. Next week, fastball, we're going to be sitting here one day, and the call will have gone through, and they'll say Russia has taken territory. That's the next thing that's going to happen. So, but right now, as I said before, they have medical supplies set up. That means they're not joking, because when they start moving all those medical supplies, you have an expiration date on how long you can have those things deployed before you have to replenish them. So it's coming. In the media over here, it's almost like the Olympics is some type of diversion, and they're after money, of course. They're looking after their corporations. And the people aren't reporting. I'm not aware of anybody reporting anything on the Ukraine as far as how it's actually going and set up. And didn't they have ABC reporters in there? And they put them out. They pulled them back up again.
Yeah, they pulled them out of there because, of course, I mean, while we're being told everything's cooling down, U.S. embassy personnel are being removed. Families of essential embassy personnel are being sent home. Russia, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Russia's pulling all their embassy people out of there. Yeah. That's what you do before you have a conflict.
That's right. They're getting the any potential casualties out so that military operational people are there. So we're looking at something. Now, what will this lead to, Passball? This is a crucial point. If Russia acts in the Ukraine, it's going to show a great weakness in NATO, right? They're going to really pull the card on NATO. If NATO does not respond, I can almost guarantee you that China is going to make a move with other nations. It's going to be used as an example of how ineffective NATO is. So we're almost forced into acting quickly if something happens. Will they do it or not? I don't know. If we don't act quickly enough, it's not going to be good over there. They're just setting up things they've not set up before.
Here's an article by CNN 2 hours ago. Headline reads, Biden says no one knows what Putin will do after the White House called the Russian invasion of Ukraine imminent. President Joe Biden acknowledged on Tuesday deeply uncertain situation at the Ukraine border while Russian troops were still amassing, but few observers have any definitive knowledge of whether or when they might invade. So earlier, the White House said a Russian invasion was imminent, and American troops have been placed on high alert to deploy to Europe in a show of reassurance. U.S. and European sanctions have been readied in the event of an invasion, and Biden also said he'd be willing to apply sanctions on President Vladimir Putin himself, a step previous presidents have avoided. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure they're going to act in the way they should, Pascal. I think they don't believe he's going to make that move. I think they are grossly they're leading themselves astray, right?
Yeah.
Because having people on standby is one thing, but you got to remember we pulled all of our guys, most of our guys, back out of European theater, so we don't really have anybody in European theater. To leave that up to Germany and some of the other NATO nations, that's going to be a very slow response, with the exception of France and their army. I know they'll walk in there, very quickly, but if they do so, they're not going to have the support they think. And with Russia now moving its ships in that local area, this could really drag some people into it, because it may turn out being one of those situations that's much more than anybody counted on, right?
Yep.
Because Russia may not be anticipating a response from NATO, period, other than sanctions, right? So if something else takes place, that's going to put both sides in shock. We're going to have a very new situation.
Do you now that we see this, what's going on, folks, I want to welcome all 8,000 of you that are with us live here tonight. And Mike, by the way, last Thursday was the largest online live broadcast we've ever had. We hit over 10,000 people last Thursday. It was really pretty amazing to see people coming out this late on a Thursday night. But it was better. The better statistic was the 73 souls that came to Christ. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome.
Amen.
Yeah.
Mike,
well, you know what, Pascal? It's
yep.
We're going to be sitting here one day explaining what people are seeing in the heavens, and that day is coming. That's what's going to happen.
Whoa! It's coming, and from what you've been saying, folks, and if you haven't missed a thing. The webinar's tomorrow. The effects of Planet X is tomorrow. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. Mike, you and I had an unbelievable conversation a couple hours ago that we just taped. That's going to be on the webinar on the summit. And you're basically what I'm hearing you say, and I don't want to tell everything you told because you dropped some unbelievable bombs, but this 2022 we ain't seen nothing yet. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And you know what? I hope that the more awareness you have, when something does take place, you're going to be in that much better of a position, stability-wise and brain-wise. But if you're oblivious to what's going to take place, given any contingency, you're going to be quite fearful in those times, So I'd recommend that people get themselves ready, especially get their souls ready, because no preparations are going to do anybody any good outside of Christ. But there are going to be some things that people are going to have to know, because we're quickly going to move into the area where people are seeing everything. And then what do you say, right? They're going to want explanations. And that's when the experts, the divergent experts in the world, are going to jump on the scene and try to explain something they know nothing about. That's what will happen. And they're going to use that to their advantage, like they do everything else. All these things that are happening in the world, they're going to use it to their advantage.
Mike, it was amazing in the interview with you for the webinar, but you told me one thing I was shocked, is that one of these objects coming in our direction is named after a president.
It is.
Why?
It is.
Why did they do that?
Isn't that funny? You know what? That's a weird story, but yeah, it's been named that for quite some time now. But
wow,
yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I want
odd fact. One of those odd facts.
That's an odd fact. You're going to have to get the ticket and be over there and watch that tomorrow night. That's a little shocking, but that one didn't bother me as bad as the others that you talked about there. See, let me just say, that's worse than I had originally thought.
Yeah, Pascal, sometimes I know these things are tough to swallow, right? It's really tough because of Hollywood and because of, you have a lot of people who they just do things for whatever reason, but sometimes subjects are very difficult for somebody to swallow, but we truly are in a different time. All these, to explain something that's going to happen years in the future, those days are going to go away. And ultimately, people are going to be living in the middle of those times. That's just like this issue with Russia. Who would ever think that this would lead to a big world war, right? That seems like that couldn't happen.
But you said this to me, I know 7 years ago. You said, oh, by the way, because I remember in 2014, I was covering the fact when Russia went in and took Crimea. And we were talking about it and how that Russia was sending the little green men in. And the war and back and forth and the incursions and excursions and conflict going. 14,000 people have been killed, folks, in East Ukraine in the last 7 years. And now all of a sudden we're coming up on the 8th anniversary of this in April. And you always said Russia is going to take that country. And you still feel that way, and we're on the brink of it now, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's coming.
And it's hard. It really is. When you say something like this, it's hard to swallow, right? Yeah. Until you start to see the events lining up. And then, of course, people want to say they want to know why, right? And that's when all the noise is going to be generated. But it's even harder to think that something that small, Ukrainian crisis, could end up being the spark for a large world war. That would be very difficult to swallow. But if you look at the elements at play right now, I know everybody is looking at China and Taiwan. Everybody is.
Yep.
But Russia with the Ukraine it's almost like us in Christ. It really is. We have a strong belief in Christ. And if somebody came along and took away some foundational memorabilia from us, we wouldn't like that too much.
No.
Right? And if we had the opportunity, we would take it back. Because when something is tugging at your heart like that, you'll always say it's in the wrong hands. Until you get it back, you're going to know it's in the wrong hands. Whether Ukraine is just like that. And suppose somebody overreacts. Just imagine somebody gives some, because news doesn't exactly travel in a very precise way these days. Given all the technology we have and all the ability that we have to see things, machines, they can work out fine, but you have that human factor where people, sometimes they'll overreact. And in my opinion, I strongly believe somebody's going to overreact. We have a perfect storm for people to overreact. Think about this. President Biden's approval rating is very low. Of his own people, it's very low. Right? And suppose he's doing things right now to attempt to redeem himself. He's changing the narrative, right?
Yep.
His reaction to the Ukraine could be in one of those moments where he oversteps or overdoes something, right? And if that takes place, because it's happened in history before, where people have overreacted, they did not have the confidence of the public, and so they asserted themselves and their power, right, by authorizing something that was clearly too much, but they went and did so anyway. And it caused what could have been solved at a conference table. Instead, it caused these conflicts that last for long periods of time. We could actually be facing one of those situations.
Yes. Hey, a question here. Canada. Oh, Canada. They have the longest trucker convoy now, world record, longest in history of the world. And I heard that, and that was about 500 semi-trucks. And what I'm hearing is that by Saturday, when this trucker convoy gets to Ottawa, they're looking at 50,000 trucks. Mike, and people are cheering them on the road and handing them food and coffee as the truckers are creeping by, supporting them. What is Justin Trudeau thinking tonight?
Well, I think he's trying to calm people down, I believe, right? You know, there are certain states right now in certain counties in certain states that are out of food. Right, they're out of food.
Yeah.
Now, not to send anybody into a panic, but let me put it to you this way: there are certain counties I was looking at. These guys have no food left, and their stores were shut down because they have no product. They have no product. Some of the other stores, people are finding out these strange facts about their products. Very different products on the shelves, and what's coming in is actually what they've been grabbing from the bare bottom of their warehouses.
Yep.
They're places where they stock things. Some of your smaller counties, they grow their own. They have different distributors within the state that supply, fresh meat, things like that. But they're running into issues. They're running into problems. So what we're having here is it looks like a big shift is taking place, because our problem, what's happening now is you're taking away from certain people based on the census, right? Based on the population.
What?
They are redirecting major supplies to specific cities based on the census. Now, we don't know what type of categories are looking for in each city, but we know something is taking place because some counties have places with food, other counties don't. And there are a lot of restaurants shutting down again, not from COVID-19, but not from having supplies. They just don't have the supplies. And they can't get employees.
No.
It's the first time in history where jobs have been available, but they're shutting down because they can't find employees. This is happening in too many places. It's almost like a mental some mental thing happening. People don't want to work anymore.
What I mean, look, America paid a lot of people to stay home for about a year, and the teachers in Chicago apparently haven't been able to get back to work for about 2 years for whatever reason. And we got medical people being fired, and then other medical people being rehired, even though they're positive, and there's confusion everywhere. I mean, Mike, what's going on here? What's going on here?
It's almost like everything changed mentally in people during COVID-19. A lot of people were exposed to the internet, specifically YouTube, and they don't want their jobs anymore. They want to sit back and enjoy, what they can get off YouTube. But there's a problem, right? To my understanding, even these singers, these all the musicians and artists, they're in trouble. To my understanding, they have an opening to do a lot of commercials so they can make up for most of the concerts they lost, right? You know what it really shows, Pascal? It really shows what America was based off of. We have slipped too far. We used to be a manufacturer of things, right?
Right.
We manufacture now? Entertainment. That's what we manufacture, entertainment. That's our major product, is entertainment. Is that sad or what?
Yeah, we're going to fall like Rome. We're going to fall like Rome.
That's absolutely right. It's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. We're not making anything. We got into a position where we managed everybody else. Everybody else had to work, but we were the executives of the world, right?
Yep.
And, of course, when our leadership goes wonky, well, then the whole thing goes wonky, and this is the situation we face right now.
It's a disaster, folks. This is Mike from Around the World with us tonight, guys. Incredible information. He just shared with me on the Planet X, the effects of Planet X, insane information. And I don't mean it insane, like unbelievable. I mean, he's believable. He tells you flat out what it is. It's just unbelievable when you hear it, when you realize that you're just months away from a life-changing scenario. Life altering should really be the word. And where we are now, 30 months ago, I did not think we'd be. Mike, I heard you 2 years before the shelves went empty. I heard you telling us, oh, by the way, people, get ready to eat Spam. The shelves are going to be going empty soon. The products you like to buy, you're not going to be able to find them. Everybody's like, what's this guy talking about? I mean, now we know what you're talking about, but I still can't figure out what it's all about. I'm still struggling. Is this a manufactured famine?
Well, call it a reaction. It's the capability of people. This is what they're capable of on a very small scale. Pastor, think of it this way. Everybody think of it this way. In the future, Revelation, all of it's going to come to pass, right?
Yep.
If we backtrack, right? If we backtrack, before they went and hit themselves, something scared them, right?
Yep.
Before they were scared, they were involved in just all types of iniquity, right? Just bad stuff, bad policy, authorized. Everything God called an abomination, they legalized, right?
Yeah.
And so people obeyed the law, but they were living in iniquity while obeying the law. So everything was everything was like Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, prior to that time, when they were in this lawless state, what we were comfortable with living totally broke down. And here's my question. What in the world could happen so extreme that the rest of our society could totally fall apart into immorality? I hope it's not like the Egyptians, right? Or like in Mexico before they had their calamities, or before the Indians broke down in their first large societies before they became, what people know them as today, because they had the Native Americans here in America had large kingdoms over here, advanced kingdoms. They weren't living in caves, but something brought down everybody, right?
Yeah.
Something also caused people. It was so bad they began to sacrifice their own children, right? To try and get something to go away. And then it got even worse that the Mithraic culture, they began to erect these monuments to the stars, right? Of which the bull was the savior.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go back in these ancient cultures, if you go back, right before Christ, well, shoot, you can go after Christ. Something happened on the earth. A lot of people don't know what happened after Christ on the earth. It got awful after Christ.
Yes, it did.
This world sat in darkness for 30 years. I wonder if people even know that the earth was thrust into darkness for 3 years, right?
Yep.
And then that was, then everything started picking back up again. But society had to rebuild itself because it was totally lost. It's about to happen again quickly, right? Very quickly. And it all began with the bugs shifting, just like it does here. All the bugs are going up north. The trees began to die, right? Certain beetles were a telltale mark that there was a shift in the climate. As it got worse, the morality of humanity began to fall. How do we know? Because they had newspapers back then. They didn't call them newspapers, but they had newspapers. Just like we document everything that happens in the world, so did they. And people can go and read what their cultures were about. But I'll go ahead and tell you, government, nobody trusted their government anymore. That's where it started, Pastor Paul.
Here we go.
Why is it with every single civilization that fell, one of the first things that happened were the people did not trust their government anymore? And when they didn't trust their government, they went so far as to yanking those people out of office. Then they started killing their leadership. Lesser qualified people took control of all these higher positions. Immorality came in at a very high rate. We're on track to fulfill all these things. We see it. It's right before us. People, they didn't want to wait on their own faith, right?
No.
So what did they do? They took matters into their own hands and they made things happen. If they wanted delivered, they made themselves get delivered. As a result of that, the killing sprees started and blood was all over the place, right? Then property. They began to just claim people's property. When you have a breakdown in government and leadership, lesser qualified people are doing this, you have no organized law enforcement. You have people with attitudes who are doing anything and everything they want to do without a mentor in the streets. We're following suit for this. We're following suit.
We're doing this right now. Look,
say no more police. We saw cities do that.
Right. I mean, the defund the police, defund the police, defund the police. Now they're killing cops faster than
That's right.
And there's
not only that, Pastor Paul, when this happens, it's starting, and it's when there were times in these ancient societies when the children were put away. The children, I mean, that's all I'm going to say is they were put away. When people disregard the children, right? And I mean, they were put away. That's when the heavens released whatever they released.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So even if we follow suit with that, Pastor Paul, before we see many of the major things, we're about to go through a lot of changes. But I can tell you what, I will not see one thing that was lost in all those ancient societies was their patience in their faith. Whatever they believed in, they didn't wait on it. They had no patience in their faith, right?
That's right.
I'm not going to lose mine, right? I'm not. They took matters into their own hands, which means they didn't trust God to solve anything for them. And isn't it funny how that's true for all those societies? Even when back during the days when God's own children, he told them, you guys got to straighten up, right? Or I'm going to send you into exile. Yes. And they didn't. What they did was they took matters into their own hands and they degraded. Through that small act of obedience, things happened. But the Lord corrected them just like he's going to correct us.
Yep.
But my point is, the world degrades morale-wise. Their morality is just totally perverted. Everything is perverted. And it lures the rest of the world in. In our case, though, we have an entire religion waiting to see Christianity fall. We do.
We can't
forget that.
They are betting on it. They are trying to help
right now
trying to destroy it.
Yeah.
Folks, if you go to Matthew 24 for a second, because what Mike is saying is jumping off the pages. It's written in red. You know, and Mike, I want to share this with you. I've had a real busy day today because I had an interview on the largest Catholic podcast in the world. That was at noon. And then me and you did our interview for the webinar. That was at 8. I did another interview at 4. But then I got a phone call. Heidi got a phone call at 1 o'clock. A Russian news group wanted to interview me to put on Russian television. The largest Russian television station in Moscow, comes out of Moscow. And I sat down for an hour and a half taking tough questions from the Russians about Christianity and about the times we're in, okay? Mm-hmm. And, it shows me that even though we're close to these wars and rumors of wars, the people are still looking to the heavens and are still wondering what's going on. And they also were asking questions about what do you think is going to happen to the church? What's going to happen to the body of Christ? I want to read to you what it says in Matthew 24, folks, and we'll come right back to Mike. Here's what it says. You know, Jesus was asked the question, tell us the sign that I come in the end of the world. You guys know he goes through that whole list of stuff about the false Christ and false prophets and wars, rumors of wars, and the famines, and the pestilence, and all that, earthquakes and all that. But then look at verse 9. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake, for Jesus' name. That's the church. And then shall many be offended, shall betray one another, shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall rise, they'll deceive many, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Okay? But he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. And when this gospel is preached in all the world for witness unto all nations, then shall the end come. And I'll stop right there because you can keep on going. But let me ask you a question, Mike. Ghost cities. We know about FEMA camps. Mm-hmm. We know about internment camps. We know about prison camps. We know about death camps, whether it be in North Korea or China or somewhere. What is these ghost cities? And I'm hearing that the ghost cities are not just China ghost cities, that these things are all over the world. Is that true?
They are. They really are. They really are.
Well, what's the deal? What for?
They most certainly are. You know what, Basketball? That's a good question. And based on perspective, they could be anything from, places where, I'll tell you what a ghost city was actually used for. Okay. It was used for dissidents, for those who did not obey governmental rule at that time. They were stuck in these places with minimal supplies. They couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't do anything, right? So it was more like a ghost prison is what it was like, because once those people got in these places, they could not go free, right? That happened. That actually happened.
It happened here in the United States?
Huh?
Did it happen here in the United States?
That happened. Part of that happened in the U.S. on the West Coast, in fact. It really did. In fact, at that time, if they thought you were not for, the Americans, well, actually, it didn't matter. If you were of a certain type of individual, you had to go, because they could no longer, have confidence in anybody.
Well, we know this. We know this happened to the American Native Americans, because they got shoved around everywhere and they wound up in reservations after at the end of the day. And the Asians. And the Japanese. The Japanese during World War II.
That's right.
So
now, obviously, something else is happening now, because the control mechanism, right, is a paycheck. That's what the control mechanism is. And some of the hardest people to control are veterans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't.
Because they're not going for it. And police officers, anybody who's trained to use weapons, and they're trained in tactics, they had to be controlled, so they're kept on a type of leash. But some of these ghost cities overseas, Passball, you have, I would say you have two different types. You have a type where people that don't look too good, right? But then you have another type that's highly fortified and protected. Here's the problem, though. If they're topside, they're not going to do anybody any good.
Because of what's
not to
coming.
Live there, not to stay there. If they're top, how are they going to do anybody any good topside? If all this stuff is coming, the top of the earth is going to be, target number one. So any cities for the elite would have to be underground. Maybe that's why China built that. They have an underground facility that is we're talking about super large. Part of it was filmed or was watched from the air. One of the defectors in China actually had a clip of this place, and my goodness gracious, they have jets that were flying almost at a 45-degree angle straight out of the ocean, right?
What?
That was the door opening up in this place. So they have large facilities underneath the ground. One of them sits under that artificial island while they were pushing dirt topside. And people said, look, they're making an artificial island. They had already made the concrete structure underneath, right? So they're getting ready. If we face a real calamity, you better believe that logistics is going to be in operation. They're going to start rediverting just about everything down the ground. But the topside is going to become more and more immoral. And in that reading you did, Matthew, here's a kicker that always gets me. How in the world could a Christian ever get to the point where they will be besieged in the first place? Now, it said it's not possible. But the threat, just the sheer threat of if God did not interfere, the elect would have no chance against what's coming. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
God won't permit it. That's why the very elect won't be deceived.
Right.
But Pastor Paul, that means he has to intervene so we don't fall for it. You know what that tells me? That tells me of a social shift so radical that we're not going to know which way is up and which way is down. That means all of what we see now, no matter how chaotic, can be called stability compared to what it will degrade into. And I believe that process has already begun. I believe it's already
so
begun.
here's the scripture as well, Matthew 24, as you were talking. He'd said this, verse 16, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains, talking about the Jews now in Israel. Let them which are on the housetop come down to take anything on the house. Don't do it. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Too late. Okay. Woe to them that are with child, them that give suck in those days. Pray that your flight be not in the winter nor on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, no to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. God is not going to allow his people to be destroyed certainly we're not going to suffer the wrath of God. Okay, we know that.
No.
We know that. But we're not talking about the wrath of God here. We're talking about the apocalyptic events that's coming up on the earth. This isn't the wrath.
What we will see. That's right.
It's not the wrath of God. This is still, and that's going to be bad, isn't it, Mike?
He said, the Lord said, we will see this and we will see that.
See
if we're
this.
going to see it, then that means we're going to be here while it's happening.
Well, of course.
It's not going to take us out, but you know what, Pastor Paul? I've seen people pass out from what they see. Right?
Yep.
I've seen it.
Yep.
And while everybody is, this is one of the main reasons why I guess I burn internally with a message inside to get people prepared to stop saying, this is not real and that's not real and that's not real, but rather say, despite what happens, I'm going to continue to walk in the Lord.
Amen.
Instead of saying, this won't happen, that won't happen.
No.
Because, Pastor Paul, when this summer comes, right? When this summer comes, it's going to make a difference. This winter, the next month is going to make a difference in certain people's lives. This certain crises around the world is going to make a difference. There's a specific volcano. It's going to make a difference. When people see these things, it's going to make a difference. But I'll tell you now, to see some of these things come about is going to be frightening. It's going to be scary. It's going to put people on edge, right?
Yeah.
But we will see it. We can't react and start acting like a heathenistic type people again.
No.
Because that's what's happening to people right now. The pressure of what's happening right now is so great. People are killing each other. People are doing things they wouldn't normally do. And we're talking about people murdering, right?
Right.
Who have no profile of a murderer. We're talking about a person who's worked close to retirement, and all of a sudden they murder their whole family.
What is
People
that
who
about?
engage
That's
in things.
demonic. That's demonic. Is their minds
It's
being
spreading. Pastor, we're in a time right now, right, where what a person truly is on the inside is going to be shown on the outside, right? They can't hide anymore. If a person is hateful and murderous, that's going to pop out the person. If a person is a person maybe you didn't know, if they're kind and genuine and giving, that's going to come out. But whatever they are is going to be expressed on the outside. And society is falling to a point where a demon could walk down the street in the clear and nobody would care, because the activities of humanity is rivaling the destructive appetite of a demon. It's almost
insane.
like you can't tell the difference between the two.
Here's what it says. You were quoting Luke 21, verse 25. There shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity or confusion. The sea, the waves will be roaring. There's something going on. And get this, and men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Then shall they see the Son of Man. Who? Jesus of Nazareth, coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, you know what he told the church? Look up, lift up your heads. Your redemption is drawing nigh. That means the church is still here. Okay, these are the apocalyptic things. We're not even talking about the wrath of God, folks. Get it out. Get off the back porch.
That's right.
Get off the back. Get off the
He
back
said
porch.
we see it.
Yes, get off the back porch waiting on the rapture. Wake up. There's some stuff got to happen yet. But once it gets so intense, we're going to see all these things. We're also going to see the coming of Jesus Christ. Folks,
that's right.
I mean, Mike, you know it's right. You know I'm right. And
see, that's right.
We got to get
right.
I'm sorry, the little fluffy puffy preaching, the marshmallow message, it's just, I can't sit here and pretend it. I have to put that over here. I love everybody. But guys, if I see a sword coming, Mike sees a sword coming, if we fail to warn you, God will require your blood on our hands. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, he will. Right? So everybody ought to get ready to walk out, whatever they have to walk out to the very end. You know what? Here's one thing. Listen, I hear a lot of people say sometimes, Pastor Paul, they'll say, well, Mike, God said he'll make a way of escape. Yes, if you're in sin, he'll make a way of escape. Then they'll say, well, the Lord said, pray that you escape all these things, right?
Right.
If you look back at those, to be worthy, but it said, pray that you're worthy to escape all these things and to stand before the Son of Man. Now, the only time we're going to stand before the Son of Man is when we're no longer here on this earth.
Amen.
When we have finished our race and are gone, right?
Right.
But we have to get ready to see some things, just like World War I. A lot of people thought they wouldn't see that. World War II, they thought they wouldn't see that. All these conflicts we have, they thought they wouldn't see it, but they did. The Lord said we would see it, not be killed by it, right? He didn't say we'd be killed by it. He said we would see it. The wrath of God is different because there's no escape during that time for the folks here, but he'll be our defense all the time. We have to get ready to see the real deal of this world, what people really are. And one of the biggest things people are going to see, Pastor Paul, is when they find out the person beside them is not who they have been, because we're about to see the true state of a person come straight out of a person. Nobody's going to have that ability to hide. This will probably go in tandem with what the sun is about. We've heard of flares from the sun, right? I know we're out of time, but we've heard of flares from the sun, right?
Go ahead. I've been working all day.
I wonder what they're going to name this next phenomena that the sun is about to do. Let me describe it. It'll look almost like a bow, right? Like a red bow is coming off the sun. Distinctly red, like a red bow is coming off the sun. A red bow? Yeah. A red bow, like a bow on a present or something like that. I wonder what they're going to call that, because it's not going to be a flare. It's not going to be a CME, and it's going to be the first of a few that people are going to see like that. But I'll tell you something else. It will be earth-facing. It's going to be earth-facing.
Well, what will it do to the earth?
I have no idea.
You know what?
I have no idea.
David Wilkerson, 1973 prophecy, he saw the cosmos on fire. He's seen the heavens on fire. The body of Christ was still here. Christ Jesus had not returned yet. He looked and he saw in the heavens on fire. Maybe he saw that glowing red, blazing red bow coming off the sun.
Well, I know we're going to have some type of ignition. It'll look like an ignition event, but we're going to have a change of light. You know how people see blue all the time?
Yeah.
They won't see blue. They won't see blue.
That's
going to be the response of ionized. It's going to be a lot of ionized gas that is introduced into our atmosphere, and things will change. They'll continue to change from that day forward, but major changes coming.
Even Zechariah said the heavens rolled back like a scroll. Okay? Well, when you take a scroll and you unroll it, it's going to flare out. Okay?
Yeah.
So, look, guys, when I said don't send them back porch and wait on the rapture, what I was trying to say was this. You got to understand something. I'm looking for the blessed hope, like Mike is and everybody else. Every day. I know the Lord's coming. I want to be ready when he comes. But I also know this. As we're waiting, we must be about the Father's business. We can't get to a point where we just say, look, it's almost over. I think I'm just going to crawl in a hole and hide. No, you were commissioned. Every one of us were commissioned to go into all the world and preach the gospel. How we do that? Well, all of us participated together. But we're not to sit back and just hope things get better and just hide and wish God would come and get you. You don't want to stand in heaven and him say, wait a minute, where's your garment? I don't see your wedding garment. Where were you at when we were handing them out? Well, I was hiding. I was afraid. You need to be ready to serve the Lord now. And I mean, that's with your whole heart, your soul, your strength, and your mind. Mike, I'm not trying to preach hard to the people. I'm just trying to warn them that this thing's real. And if we're running out of so much time, we ain't got time to babysit. People got to get saved. Am I right?
Yeah, they do, Pastor, because the person that can see their light can't see my light, right?
Right.
They'll only see their light. And if they put that light out, that other person who's looking for it, they'll not know where to go. So, right, it's almost like we're live for somebody else. So even our own lives are intimately tied to somebody else's victory, right?
Amen.
But the question is, will we complete this walk or not? I know in my case, whatever comes, that's up to the Lord, right? But he already told me I could finish this race.
You can finish it.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
I'm going to finish it with you. And remember them 3 Hebrew boys before we let you go, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They looked right at that king and said, look, king, we believe the Lord is going to deliver us. But whether he does or not, we're still not going to bow.
That's right.
That moment is approaching millions of people, and they don't even know it. We've got to keep them on. Hey, Mike, tomorrow night's the webinar. Better get their tickets.
All right.
They better get their tickets.
Yeah, I hope people really consider. Please consider this time. I hope they consider everything in the webinar this time. They're going to need it.
Yeah, they are. And this is the strongest one we've ever had. There's no doubt. Need it. But it's all the truth. Mike, appreciate it. I got to let you go. You're a busy man. See you next Thursday.
God bless, Pastor Paul.
See you next Thursday night.
All right. I'll be here.
Lord willing. Lord
God
willing.
Bless.
God bless. Amen. It's Mike from around the world, folks. Are you serious? Are you